Oh no! The chef ran off with the restaurant's money. If this keeps up, the restaurant will go under, and so will my dad. As I headed to the diner I'd become a regular at while traveling, the waitress, looking pale, rushed out of the restaurant. When I asked her what happened, she explained that her father, the head chef, was hospitalized. And another chef they trusted had taken all the restaurant's money. I'm currently unemployed, but I used to be a chef at a fancy restaurant in New York. But, considering what I did, is it really okay for me to step in? The waitress in front of me hung her head and started to cry. I mustered up my courage and made a suggestion. I was a chef. Maybe I can help. If you don't mind, could you let me use your kitchen for a week? My name is John. I'm 32 now, and though it might sound strange hearing from me, I've caused an unbelievable amount of trouble for many people. Today, I want to share my story. After graduating high school, I didn't go to college and instead I chose to go to culinary school without hesitation. At that time, I was thrilled by the dream of becoming a chef. Looking back now, I think I was quite innocent then. In culinary school, as long as you graduate, you basically get a chef's license. I studied the basics diligently from the start, graduated, and entered the culinary world. After graduating, I got a job at a fancy restaurant in New York. You might get an idea of the chef's world from a TV show that once made waves depicting a chef's growth. It's really strict with hierarchy, and the one who joins even a day earlier is your senior. Initially, you're only allowed to do menial tasks like cleaning, washing dishes, and taking out the trash. Some classmates in the dorm even had to do their seniors' laundry. I endured such treatment and trained intensively for 3 years. I think these 3 years were about building endurance, dealing with the instructions and sometimes unreasonable demands from seniors, and seeing if you could keep up. Another important thing to learn during this period is building physical strength. Chefs are often thought to just make meals, but it's actually physically demanding. You need as much power as someone in a sports team. A stock pot can weigh several kilograms when full, and flour or sugar comes in 60-pound bags. So your arms ache with muscle pain every day until you get used to it. After 3 years of training, I returned to my family's restaurant, the Johnson, to work under my father. But initially, I think I was spoiled because I was his son. I thought I'd get to cook right away, but I had to start from scratch, doing menial tasks again. What? I've been training for 3 years. I don't care. Here, you're a rookie. I can't let someone like you handle a knife. Why not? If I let you make food for our customers, the restaurant would go under. You're in the way standing there. Go wash those pots. I never got along with my dad. We clashed and yelled at each other constantly. After 5 years of that, I secretly started thinking about going independent. Then my dad suddenly passed away. It was a day off for the restaurant, but my mom got worried when he didn't wake up even by noon and found him already gone. He was struck by acute myocardial infarction, the most common cause of sudden death. So at 27, I suddenly had to take over my dad's role. I always wanted to cook. I wanted many people to eat the food I made and be happy. Even though my wish was finally coming true, I was terrified. The Johnson was a well-known restaurant in the area. The pressure of running that restaurant was immense. After my dad's sudden death, customers visibly dwindled. But that was a testament to how great my dad's cooking was and how much people loved it. I realized how great my dad was only after he was gone. I was prepared to close the restaurant, but I remembered why I came back to this place and why I wanted to become a chef. So I decided to work like my life depended on it. I aimed to faithfully recreate my father's flavors and improve our service. I was the first to arrive in the morning and the last to leave at night. On my days off, I would go out to study the service and flavors of famous restaurants. Seeing me like this, the employees who were halfway considering closing the restaurant re-evaluated their attitudes toward work. First, there was my senior, Tom. We all called him Big Tom because he was my mentor and always looked out for me. Even the waiters who directly interacted with customers started supporting my vision. I think we were all desperate during this time. Initially, people came to the restaurant because it was my father's place, but they began to spread the word about our hard work and service. And those people posted about us on social media. Thanks to that, the restaurant gradually became lively again. As the employees worked smoothly together, we eventually received the highest ratings for our food and service on social media. Even amateur reviews made us happy. And then, without us even realizing it, our restaurant, the Johnson, was featured in the Michelin Guide. What's more, we received the highest rating of 3 stars. 1 star means a very good restaurant in its category. 2 stars mean excellent cooking, worth a detour. 3 stars mean exceptional cuisine, worth a special journey. Our restaurant was rated as a place worth traveling to just for the food. We received 3 stars on our first listing. This was unprecedented. I was on cloud 9. But receiving this rating made me completely arrogant. The 3 stars were a recognition of the restaurant, not of me personally. Yet, I got cocky and started yelling at the employees for being slow. Now, I understand. I see how arrogant and selfish I was. I was acting like a conceited fool. It's no wonder that people like Big Tom, who had to put up with my snide remarks, were unhappy. The camaraderie we had once shared began to dissipate, and I was constantly frustrated when things didn't go smoothly. Then one day, a decisive event occurred. During a lunch break, I raised my voice. That was the last straw for Big Tom. Enough is enough. You're just a second-generation owner. We helped because we appreciated your father, not you. What do you think you're doing? Big Tom? How dare you talk to us like that? You couldn't have done anything without us, right? You're just a rookie acting all high and mighty. Big Tom blurted out all at once and slammed a bottle of cooking oil on the floor. The bottle was the Johnson flavored oil. It was made by my grandfather, whom I respected greatly. The bottle shattered with a crash, spilling its contents on the floor. Grandpa's oil. At that moment, something snapped inside me, and before I knew it, I was grabbing Big Tom by the collar. Big Tom! Calm down. John, stop it. Calm down. Everyone immediately stepped in to stop us, and fortunately, Big Tom wasn't hurt. But at that moment, a freelance journalist named Mark, who had come to request an interview, saw everything. The incident quickly became news, and bad rumors spread like wildfire. Online news, social media, gossip among students and housewives. By the next day, reservations were canceled, customers stopped coming, and we were forced to close the restaurant. It was only then that I realized how foolish I had been and how much of a jerk I had become. I brought this on myself. After paying the employees their wages and severance pay up to that day, I left all the remaining procedures to the lawyer and left New York. Eventually finding myself in my father's hometown of Vermont. This is the town where my grandfather lived as a cooking oil maker. Feeling nostalgic, I wandered aimlessly. I walked for about an hour. Eventually, hunger struck, and I turned into an alley where I spotted a building that looked like a diner. There was a sign hanging at the entrance, but it was too worn to read. As I approached, I caught a whiff of a wonderful aroma. Is this broth soup? The smell was nostalgic and clearly crafted with care. It smells just like the one my father used to make. Drawn in by the aroma, I stepped inside. Welcome! Inside, contrary to the exterior, stood a beautiful woman in pretty clothes. She looked to be in her late 20s, and her elegant, enchanting smile left me momentarily frozen. She quickly brought over water and a hand towel. What would you recommend? Well, everything is good, but how about the stew, a traditional dish of this region? Today's stew includes mountain vegetables and mushrooms. I'll have that, please. Certainly. The woman retreated to the kitchen. While waiting for the food, the aroma of the broth filled the room, almost bringing me to tears. Trying to hide my emotions, the food soon arrived. The meal was exceptional. The broth was highlighting the ingredients' natural flavors. The meat was tender, with condiments that complemented rather than overshadowed the aroma, and I finished the meal in no time. It was truly delicious, and I was thoroughly satisfied. Thank you for the meal. On my way out, I stayed at a hotel near the station that night. From that day on, I frequented the diner daily. It wasn't just the food, perhaps it was also to see the woman's bright smile. As I kept visiting, I learned more about her. Her name was Emily. She was the waitress of the diner Sagan, and I felt that many customers, like me, came to be healed by her smile. A week after arriving in Vermont, I decided to visit my grandfather's grave and the local cooking oil manufacturer. That day, there was a free tour, and many visitors were coming and going. Inside, there were large barrels as tall as me. Now, we will let you taste this special flavored oil. It has a mellow flavor that goes well with vegetable dishes and stews. As the artisan opened the barrel lid, a rich yet sharp aroma filled the air. Strangely, it wasn't unpleasant. I could see that they take care of the oil, and I saw pride in their faces. Their faces overlapped with those of my grandfather and father. As I was moved, I returned to the diner with a renewed heart. However, the taste of the food that day felt different. The kitchen wasn't visible from the seating area, so I couldn't see what was happening. Puzzled, I paid the bill without saying anything. In the end, I stayed in this town in Vermont for almost a month. During that time, I had plenty of moments to think and consider my future. I experienced the kindness of the people in this town, which made me reflect on my foolishness. Why did I do such things? I was filled with regret. It's about time to leave this place, I thought, but before leaving, I decided to stop by the diner one last time. At lunchtime, the busiest time of the day, I noticed that the sign was not out. Oh? Is it a day off? As I was about to leave, thinking it couldn't be helped, Emily rushed out of the diner. Her face was pale, and she looked very distressed. I couldn't move and just stared at Emily. Then our eyes met. Oh, sir. What's going on? You seem quite flustered. Well, if you don't mind, please tell me what's happened. I may not be much help, but... After a moment of hesitation, Emily invited me into the diner. She brought me some water, and after we sat down, she began to explain the situation. Actually, my father, the owner and chef, has been hospitalized with a heart condition. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I thought it must be tough, but surely there were other chefs. There is more than one chef. My father left the restaurant to his friend, Steve, but Steve has. What happened? Of all things, he ran off with the diner's money. What? Have you contacted the police? Embezzling the restaurant's earnings is a serious crime. It could be prosecuted under embezzlement and theft laws. Even if she didn't want to make it a criminal case, she could still fight it in civil court. However, Emily shook her head silently. I need to pay the hospital bills next week. There are also other expenses. I don't know what to do. Seeing Emily in despair, I frowned. When we found out about my father's hospitalization, we considered closing the diner. But Steve said, "Don't worry about the restaurant. Just focus on your treatment. Leave everything to me." My father completely trusted his words because Steve said, "You've done so much for me, now it's my turn to help you." How heartbreaking. I can't cook like my father. How can I report this to him while he's sick? With her face in her hands, Emily was on the verge of tears. I mustered up the courage to tell her my story. I used to work at a restaurant. I know it might seem presumptuous, but maybe it's fate. If you'd like, I can help. Really? Your father's food was delicious. I can't replicate his exact flavor, but I can help explain the situation and provide the food. But weren't you planning to leave? I was, but I've changed my mind. I didn't have any specific plans anyway. Emily accepted my offer. However, I haven't used a kitchen in a while, so my skills might be rusty. Could I use the kitchen for a week to get back into practice? Of course. Emily showed me the kitchen. On the counter was an empty bottle of flavored oil which I used to see. Noticing my gaze, Emily explained, "It was given to us by someone who used to work with my father. And if you're going to use the kitchen, why not stay at our place? We have an extra bed. I feel a bit unsafe being alone." I thought it might still be unsafe with me there, but she added, "Steve might come back." I wouldn't insist otherwise. Just until my father returns. I understood her reasoning. Considering the cost of the hotel, I hesitantly agreed. A week later, I prepared omelette, stew, and grilled chicken as on the menu. In addition to the wild vegetable and stewed dishes that were originally on the menu, I also added some new dishes. The vegetables from this region are exceptionally delicious, and I believe it will highlight the dishes. I wanted our customers to enjoy this as well. This menu was created with that wish in mind. The wild vegetables were harvested from the nearby hills and the eggs were bought cheaply from a local poultry farm since the sizes were non-standard. The other ingredients were acquired for almost nothing from a local factory that was ready to discard them. Emily also sourced vegetables from local farmers. With everyone's help, we created this menu. And so, after a week, the diner Sagan reopened. Emily had posted information on social media and handed out flyers at the station. During tourist season, not only locals but also many tourists came, and we were so busy that we didn't have a moment to rest. Making over $2,000 in a day. Now we can pay the hospital bills. Thank you, John. Then came the day Emily's father, Ken, was discharged from the hospital. Emily had gone to the hospital to handle the discharge procedures, and they returned together. Only to be surprised by the line of people in front of the diner. What's all this commotion? There's a line outside the diner. Well, a customer named John kindly helped us out. John? Seeing Ken's surprise, I couldn't stay silent and explained my situation. Let me introduce myself properly. I'm John Johnson. I used to work as a chef at the restaurant The Johnson in New York. What? That's a famous restaurant. Emily said, looking at me in surprise. The Johnson flavored oil you used in the kitchen was made by my late grandfather. I see. I thought the name sounded familiar. You must be Michael's son. Michael was my father's name. Michael and I worked together at the restaurant Smith. He was my senior and looked after me. He was an amazing chef. Yes. When I finished my training and told him I was returning to Vermont, he gave me that flavored oil as a farewell gift. I was a big fan of it. And I believe it's what kept our diner going. I love my grandfather's flavored oil too. Indeed. So, I have a request for you. Ken straightened up and took a formal posture. I followed suit and straightened my back. Would you stay here and help my daughter run the diner? I thought for a moment but gladly accepted his request. Since Ken was not fully recovered, he took charge of making small dishes. The carefully mixed eggs created a perfectly fluffy omelet that quickly became popular. Enjoy the omelet as it is and then use the flavored oil to get a different flavor. Also, try adding the oil to the stew. The aroma will fill your mouth. I explained the recommended ways to eat to the customers. When the flavors complement each other, the possibilities are endless. Thanks to this kind of service, more customers kept coming. One day before opening, a familiar face came to the diner. Sorry, we're not open yet. Oh. It was the freelance journalist, Mark. Well, John. Long time no see. Oh well. Do you remember me? After that incident, I wondered where you'd gone, and here you are. His smile was still creepy. What do you want? I don't know about his past, but John is now doing his best to run this diner. If you're here to cause trouble, please leave. Oh. You don't know what he did? It's impossible not to know about such a famous restaurant as the Johnson. Fights among chefs are common in this industry. Emily firmly stated, trying to drive Mark away. You're as bold as ever, miss. Who are you? A new figure appeared. From Emily's reaction, I realized this man was Steve, the one who had stolen the diner's money. What are you doing here? I want revenge on Ken. On my father? When I told this journalist, he agreed to help me. That's why here I am. It seemed Steve and Mark had teamed up to get revenge on Ken. Steve. Hey, Ken. You look well. I am disappointed in you. What do you want from me? Ken came out from the back, still addressing Steve politely. Ha, you're always the nice guy. Unlike me, you're popular. I hated you since our days at Smith. I should have been more skilled. But everyone favored you. It was unbearable, even Michael favored you. Steve's shout struck a chord with me. Then, I got hooked on gambling, fell into debt, and stole from the diner. I took the money that day, and no one should have noticed. How did they find out? Apparently, Steve had been stealing even when he worked at Smith. You ratted me out to the owner back then, didn't you? I got fired because of you. Traitor. Blaming others for his crimes, what a piece of work. I might be a jerk, but Steve is on another level. What? I didn't do anything. Liar. It's not a lie. Yes, it is. Once again, Mark interrupted the conversation. His creepy smile made his enjoyment of the situation even more unsettling. I was the one who told the owner. What? You weren't on my side? I'm committed to telling the truth to the world. I'm not on anyone's side. When I saw you stealing, I told the owner I'd write an article. He said it wouldn't be worth a penny and discreetly fired you to avoid a scandal. He told the staff you left due to health reasons. What? Steve must have been tempted by something. The Steve I know wouldn't do such a thing, right? Ken's words left Steve silent. Trust takes a lifetime to build but only a moment to destroy. Oh, no. Steve, realizing his mistake, hung his head, and I also reflected on my past. Ken, I'm sorry. Everyone makes mistakes. What's important is having the courage to face them. Steve and John are trying to change. We shouldn't destroy their promising futures, right, Mark? Mark smirked. With Ken and Mark's help, Steve became involved in community revitalization. He sometimes wore the local mascot costume, Buddy, posing for tourists and promoting the town. There are people who need me here. That makes me happy. I'm very grateful. Life offers countless chances to start over. It's crucial to face yourself and let go of pride. Steve's issue is now resolved. I also asked Mark to arrange a meeting with Big Tom later. I wanted to properly apologize for what happened back then. When I met Big Tom after a long time, he was surprised to see me, but he accepted my apology and said I was also at fault. Finally, I went to my father's grave to apologize. Upon returning to Vermont, I proposed to Emily. We got married. And now, the three of us run the diner together. There was also talk of being featured in the Michelin Guide again, but after discussing it with Ken and Emily, we decided to decline. Being listed in the Michelin Guide might attract more customers, but we chose to focus on each customer individually. Haha, that's just like you. Emily laughed beside me. I want to protect this smile forever. Alright, let's make our customers smile again today. Yes. The delicious aroma of our broth fills the diner once more. It's time to open.